Hello everybody, this is ManuS and welcome back to the Eternal set review for Dark Frontier. We are back with the Justice cards. Before we get to start with the first part of the Justice cards, you know the drill. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification icon to not miss out on future content. If you enjoy the series, and please consider whitelisting EternalTitans.com and YouTube on your ad block. That really helps us out a lot. And now on to the cards. Alright. So first we have Emerald Coin. That's still a fairly decent coin. Sure, the +1/+1 weapon doesn't seem like that much, but we still have Renown and weapon synergies, and if you're into one of those two, I can see playing a couple of these, simply because they are a cheap weapon to trigger Renown and play towards weapon synergies. So the card has some potential uses there, even though the effect outside of that context isn't as strong as, say, the red or the white coin, for example, or even the blue coin. In Limited, this seems even better in a way, because boosting the stats of a unit has more impact there, I think, due to the overall lower quality and average size of units. Next we have Embargo Officer, another utility 1-drop. Here it's a 1-cost 2/1, it's a soldier, so no relevant unit type really. But for as long as this is in play, cards can't leave markets or voids. So kind of a nice hoser there. Not sure how valuable that is. I feel like not being able to access markets, usually temporarily, isn't that meaningful. The opponent would need to have a good anti-aggro market card, for example, that you deny them for this to mean enough. I feel like, since, for example, just the effect of getting rid of a blank card for a more useful card alone in a matchup against aggro where time is more of a factor than resources isn't that valuable. But yeah, suppressing the void can be quite nice. We still have strategies like Reanimator being a thing, or even-handed decks trying to rebuy even-handed golem. Shift here obviously makes it better at doing the whole disruption job, but obviously much worse of doing its main job of being a unit and attacking, so I wouldn't want to shift that most of the time. I think the card might show up here and there on the fringes in Constructed, but 1-cost 2/1s, even in aggro decks, are not at that in that good of a place right now, and this one really doesn't have anything else that helps it make impact in combat, like for example, or like generate more value like an Oni Ronin, so I'm not too high on this. In Limited, once again, if you're aggressive basically and want 1-drops, there you have one, but the text is not gonna matter much. And next we have Flash Grenade, another card that doesn't really seem like it's gonna be relevant in Constructed, but in Limited this seems like a nice defensive trick. Like for example, blowing out a relic weapon with this is super huge. And since they usually use the relic weapon pre-combat, that means they might not even get a good attack with their units in the same turn either, so it generates quite a lot of momentum and might make them break their relic weapon without killing anything, making this effectively trade with their relic weapon and their combat step. So I wouldn't mind having one of these in my deck, probably not multiples though, because it's kind of situational, and if they don't have relic weapons, it's a bit so-so. Next we have Headhunter, another pretty neat utility 1-drop. This one I like a lot better than Embargo Officer in a way. It's a 1-cost 2/1. It has 2 relevant unit types, Minotaur and Gunslinger, which is pretty nice. And basically you can pay 2 to play a wanted poster and kill Headhunter. Or if it has more than 1 toughness, you can even play a wanted poster without killing your Headhunter, which is amazing. But normally I would assume this just turns into a wanted poster, because I don't see a lot of scenarios where this gets additional health. But yeah, all in all, having a 1-drop that you can later cycle for a wanted poster, like trade in for a wanted poster, is pretty great actually. And so yeah, I could see this being an interesting card in green lower curve decks. The fact that it also is a Gunslinger 1-drop that isn't bad and allows you to play pistol on it is pretty neat. So maybe, I don't know, maybe there is some potential for a Gunslingers thing in Argenport with pistol. Would have to try, I haven't tried yet. But yeah, this card is pretty well rounded, and in limited I think it's even better because the random wanted poster in the later game stage with being less dedicated, aggressive, and ending the game without caring about the poster is much more likely. Next we have Heist, another one of these bad, cheap warp spells. Here it's a 1 cost that gives a unit or weapon in your hand +1/+1, basically the same as the 1-drop that we know. I forgot the name. But here instead of a 1/1 we get warp. So if you warp this, I would argue it's a bit better than the 1/1 probably. If you don't warp it, it's way worse. So overall it is significantly worse because warping comes up a lot less often than not. So yeah, not a great card, not even a limited, not a fan. Next we have Warfront Missionary. In Constructed I don't really see this, but overall 1/3 in stats for a 1-drop is a lot of stats. Usually you only get like 3 stat points and a bit of utility. Here we get 4 stat points. Pretty nice. So in limited, it seems like a very solid card since it is almost as decent as a mediocre 2-drop, except it costs 1, which makes it much better. So yeah, pretty happy with the guy. Could totally see putting it into my limited deck. Next we have Isolate. Kind of an interesting card. Kill an enemy unit that is attacking alone. There will be a fair share of scenarios where your opponent can only attack with their best unit because the rest is outclassed or stalled. Or they have one good evasion unit that they're attacking you with because the rest can't. And then Isolate gets rid of either of those for 2 and fast, so it also works on an empty board against chargers, which is nice. So I could see trying some number of these in a control deck like Hero Control as additional removal that doesn't really care about what the unit is and more cares about the situation in the game. And I think caring about the situation in the game is better for the control deck than caring about the kind of unit, because it's I don't know, I think it matters more being able to kill whatever they have, because you are more likely to be able to sculpt the situation in the game as a control deck than control what threat they have at a given time, if that makes sense. And in limited, it's kind of the same. Seems like a solid removal in limited, because especially, like I said, allows you to get rid of that one big guy that is bullying you, or they're like one evasive creature. But in limited, it's more likely to run into situations where they have like 2 small flyers that are attacking you and stuff like that. So use with caution. Next we have Kira the Prodigy. This is the card that Yodabyte came up with for his Make a Card from the community store. When Kira gets attack or health or battle skills for the turn, she keeps them permanently. So if you use a Finest Hour on this, she stays 5/5, and so on and so forth. So the card is actually kind of interesting. We have a couple of decent combo tricks, like in Rakano you have like Pummel and Finest Hour. In Argenport you have like Finest Hour and the new 1-cost spell, and even Rapid Shot if you really want to go that deep. Although I don't really think Rapid Shot is that great of a constructed card anymore, given that it costs 2 in an increasingly more powerful world. But yeah, all in all the card is kind of interesting, and I could see trying it like in a Rakano, or even more in an Argenport aggressive shell maybe, and just see how it goes. The problem is a bit that we have cards like Tokas now that kind of make playing a lot of combat tricks really punishing, but in Argenport, especially compared to Rakano, you can kind of play a lot of removal to make sure Tokas gets killed or have like Enforcer to silence it. So maybe there's still some potential there. I'm just not too impressed with combat tricks in general right now is the problem. And in limited, I mean, it's a 2/2 for 2, can only be so bad, and the ability, if you make it matter, is really powerful. So in limited, this seems like a great 2-drop. Next we have Pioneering Aviator, 2-cost 2/2. When you play a spell, you gain armor, and while you have armor, this is a 2/2 flyer. So basically a different take on Tinker Overseer. So if you have enough spells to trigger this, and maybe even a way to make use out of the armor with relic weapons and stuff, and additional relic weapons to provide armor. This seems like a pretty great 2-drop in limited, not a constructed card though. Then we have Relentless Deadshot, a 2-cost 2/2 lifesteal, not quite a constructed card, but a pretty good limited 2-drop I would say, especially because with Twist 3 you can use it to stun an enemy unit, so it also has like a one-time stun later, which is pretty great, and then it also turns it into a 3/1 lifesteal. Also happens to be a gunslinger, so maybe a necessary consideration for like some kind of Argenport gunslinger deck like I just talked about, but probably still not in constructed there. But in limited, great 2-drop. Next we have Reweave. This card's pretty cool and interesting. Quite the nice sort of build around. It is a tutor effect. You have to sacrifice a unit and then search your deck for a unit with the same cost or less and shift it. Especially relevant because there are a fair share of cards that are cheap but have expensive shift costs to do more powerful things when shifted later in the game. And here you can cheat them out, namely the Auric 2-drop that gets you a big weapon if you have a big weapon in your void. So yeah, pretty cool build around tutor combo kind of card. People have messed around with this a bunch already with the Auric guy, but there might be more things you can do with this. So it's definitely an interesting card to kind of keep in mind and try to break in constructed, I think. In limited, I think it's actually not very playable because you basically throw away a card for a tutor effect. And last but not least, we have Silver Shortsword, another limited only card I would say. It's a 2-cost 1/3, which is not great because it doesn't really kill a whole lot. It might help you finish some stuff in combat if people bounce off of each other. And then on Entomb you get 3 armor, which is also not particularly relevant. So all in all, I don't think this card is very good even in limited, so not a big fan. Alright, that's it for the first part of the Justice cards. Hope you guys enjoying the series still. It'll take a while. I maybe try a different format for the next set in the future to see if I can find a better way to get the review to you and restructure it. So we'll see about that. But for now, this is the structure we have. Hope you guys still enjoying it and follow it. Let me know in the comments what you think. Hit the like button if you enjoy it. Share it with your friends. And of course, if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. And please consider whitelisting EternalTitans.com and YouTube on your adblock to help support us making content. That would really mean a lot. That's it again for this time. I'm your host ManuS. I thank you for watching, and I see you next time with part 2.